floor. Xian wonders if they were able to outrun it, but William explains that it's still searching for them, and Julius realizes that there are countless monsters in the area, so William explains that the Duke ordered the lesser demons to hunt them down. Xian realizes that the Duke caused the mass outbreak of Sentinels, and Julius starts to wonder if they will be able to make it back alive. Liana notes that the situation is hopeless, and she thinks they're all doomed, but William mentions that they just need to defeat the Duke. He explains that the lesser demons are establishing a domain across the other floors, because the Duke is on the 11th floor, but he mentions that they will lose their chain of command once it's defeated, so they will become disorganized, and he thinks they might be able to escape if this happens. Julius thinks they don't stand a chance against the Duke, but William explains that he has a plan, saying he needs everyone's help to execute it. Julius thinks nobody will support him, but Wignall explains that he believes in William because he saved his life countless times. Colette mentions that she trusts William because he knows the dungeon better than anyone else, and Xian explains that he'd rather fight than stay hidden. Wignall tells Liana to trust William, so she admits that she was wrong about him, saying he deserves to be their leader, because he's the only one who hasn't been crushed by despair, telling him they will obey his orders. Julius thinks they can't win with William's plan, but he tells Julius he's right, saying they're going to fail without him, because they need his powers to execute the plan. So William begs him to help them, saying he will teach him the secret of Alfaria's spell. They decide to fight the Duke, and it starts blasting them, but they jump away, and Julius starts chanting his ultimate spell, as his clones surround the Duke. We learn that William told him that his clones allow him to carry on incantations, saying he can continue chanting even after a clone has been destroyed. So he can use it to help him cast advanced spells, which require long incantations. The Duke destroys his clones, but he comes out of hiding, and he continues chanting, as the Duke prepares to kill him, but his companions use their spells to attack the Duke. They realize that their attacks didn't work, and William strikes from above, but it doesn't do anything, as he notes that the Duke has Iron Curtain wings, which protects it from damage. So their attacks won't work against it, but he knows that they just need to act as decoys until Julius finishes casting his spell. He summons countless icicles, and they hit the Duke, but it's still standing, so everyone becomes worried. But we learn that William knew this was going to happen, so he told Liana to deliver the finishing blow while the Duke is trying to recover. She charges him with ridiculous speed, and she aims for the Duke's core, but a barrier protects it, so she becomes confused, wondering if the mysterious duo placed the barrier before they left. The Duke launches a counterattack, so William saves her, and Kiki protects them with her barrier, but it shatters, and his goggles end up breaking. Wertner and Edward watch the incident, and Wertner wonders what a Duke is doing on the 11th floor, but Edward tells him they don't have time to think, saying they need to hurry. William and Liana start falling, so Wignall uses his magic to help them land safely, and he asks Liana if they're okay, so she tells him she's fine, but she's worried about William because he protected her with his body. The Duke prepares to attack them, so Liana tells everyone to retreat with William, saying she will buy time for them to escape. She thinks she failed everyone, since she wasn't able to deliver the finishing blow, and she reveals that the members of her family die early because they put their lives on the line to protect their comrades. Wignall decides to join her, saying he wants to protect William, and they charge in, as Liana uses her magic to attack the Duke. Wignall restrains it with his spell, and she prepares to stab its core, but it suddenly blows them away. Xian realizes they're no match for the Duke, thinking they're going to die, and he doesn't want them to die in vain, so he thinks about retreating with William. But he suddenly tells Xian to punch him, because he won't stop shaking, saying he's useless without the goggles Alfaria gave him. He mentions that he's scared, so Xian becomes upset, reminding him that he was the one who led them there, and he starts beating him up, as he mentions that Liana and Wignall are about to die. He blames William for everything that's happening, but he suddenly stops Xian, saying he has finally stopped shaking, and he thanks him for helping him regain his composure. He tells Colette to take care of Kiki, and he charges at the Duke, as Xian wonders what's wrong with him, thinking he isn't scared at all. But Colette explains that he's always been afraid, because he's fighting with a sword, so he has no choice but to charge at his opponents, even when they're stronger than him. She mentions that he's a coward, but he doesn't flee from battle, because he's scared of running away. She thinks he's courageous, and she decides to help him, as Xian feels pathetic, because he thought about retreating. William dodges the Duke's attacks, thinking they won't be able to defeat it unless they get rid of its wings. Colette joins the battle, and he notes that Liana and Wignall have already reached their limit, so he needs to defeat the Duke with Colette. We learn that he's scared because he doesn't have his goggles, but he's even more afraid of losing the people who are close to him, so he decides to fight on. He gives Colette the signal, and the Duke fires countless beams to attack him, but he knows how to counter it because he has seen it before. He suddenly disappears, and Colette realizes he's preparing to attack the Duke, so she uses her magic to give him a stone blade, and he uses it to cut the Duke's wing. So it becomes angry, but Xion suddenly appears, and he starts chanting as he rides his phoenix. The Duke manages to destroy his phoenix, but he jumps down, and he blasts it with his ultimate spell, but the Duke endures it, and everyone can't believe his spell didn't work. They realize that a wand can't defeat the Duke, and William notes that his sword isn't strong enough. But he suddenly sees a crystal, and we see Rosti watching him from a distance, hoping the crystal will help him remember something important. He recalls a mysterious woman who was raising a baby, and she mentioned that wand and sword will come together to protect the world. So he realizes that he might be able to defeat the Duke if he combines magic with his sword, and he tells Xion to cast his spell. So he summons his flames, as William strikes it, absorbing it into his sword. Everyone can't believe what they're seeing, realizing that his sword is clad in flames, and he charges at the Duke, as he notes that he feels a mysterious power flowing through his body. The Duke continues to attack him, but he's able to cut through its magic, and he delivers the finishing blow. The Duke is burnt to pieces, and William's sword returns to normal, but he wonders about the power he was able to use. The others can't believe he was able to kill the Duke, but all the other monsters suddenly come rushing at them. They all have no more strength to fight, and Julius is about to be killed. Werkner realizes they won't make it in time, but the monsters are suddenly caught by a spell, and they're all taken out in an instant. William wonders what happened, and they see that it was Masterius, the king of the Magia, who saved them. He tells them that they fought well, and everyone bows to him in respect. One of his subordinates jumps down, surprised that the sword is still alive, and he introduces himself to William as Finn. Meanwhile, we see the mysterious duo with a sword, as they mention they successfully managed to complete their mission, and they're glad they didn't run into Masterius. The Praxis event comes to an end, and we learn that there were 11 professors that were killed. Wignall wonders about the duo, and Julius wonders what would have happened if Masterius hadn't saved them. Liana is glad they survived, and she thanks all of them for being in the party, but her stomach suddenly growls, so Colette gives her an apple, but she keeps eating and asking for more, so Colette can't believe how much she eats. But she claims it's because of her close combat magic that uses up more energy, but Colette doesn't buy it, thinking she's just a fatty. Liana goes on to praise William, thinking they all would have died without him, but he says he couldn't have done it without everyone working together. Julius reminds them how William almost got them killed, but Colette quickly stuffs an apple in his mouth. Xion wonders about the power that William used at the end, thinking it was insane, but Liana isn't sure if it was even magic, and William doesn't really know what it was. He remembers Finn from the dungeon, and Liana mentions she has read about a special tribe that can't use magic, but they have accumulated generations of knowledge about the dungeon, and since the time of the Mage Queen, they have served as guides for the dungeon, and William finds him somehow familiar. We see Finn meeting with Cauldron, and he mentions they made it to the 49th floor. He reveals a broken sword, and Cauldron wonders if it's a mage slayer. Finn mentions they ran into a shady group on the 40th floor, and even 20 of their high mages were killed, so he warns her to be careful, because there's something being planned behind the scenes. He leaves the sword for her to analyze, and he moves on to asking about William, telling her that swords are under his jurisdiction, but she mentions that William chose himself to climb the tower to become a Magia, and Finn thinks it's unheard of for a sword to want to become a wand, but he decides to allow it, but he mentions he will also be getting involved. We see William get back to his training, and Colette wonders how he can move already when everyone else is still injured, but he mentions that all he can do is keep moving forward. The others watch him from their room, wondering if he's built different, but Xion suddenly jumps out, telling William to fight him. William tells him not to push himself, but Xion reminds him that he promised they would have a proper fight after the Grand Festival, so William agrees, and they continue things from where they left off. The teachers check the test papers, and they're impressed that William got a perfect score in all the subjects so far, thinking he might ascend to the tower even though he can't use magic. Worker is glad he's doing well, and Professor Eliza tells him his student's dream is about to come true, but he notes that there's still one subject that William needs to pass. She wants to know how he's doing, so Worker activates his crystal ball, and they see him in the library. They realize he's exhausted since he's been pulling all-nighters, but he's determined to pass the last subject, so he doesn't stop studying. Colette reminds him that he just defeated an Aberrus, but he notes that he couldn't have done it without his friends, and explains that he doesn't want their kindness to go to waste. He reveals that he got spellwork credits from his lesson with Edward, and explains that he just needs to pass one more test to ascend to the tower, so he can't let his guard down. Rosti suddenly pulls out a strand of his hair, and tells him his hair will turn gray if he works too hard, but Rosti notices Colette's reaction, which makes him think she wants to do it as well. Cauldron gives Julius and Xion their wands, and we learn that they helped William and his friends defeat the Aberrus, but Xion mocks Julius since he wasn't useful during the fight. He notes that Xion was also carried by William, so they start to argue, and Cauldron realizes they just can't leave William alone. Wignall and Liana discuss how they've already completed their praxis credits, and Wignall recalls how William taught him it's okay to fail as many times as it takes, while Liana notes that he also taught her to overcome her weaknesses. That evening, Colette visits William in the library, and notes that she brought snacks for him, but she realizes he's already asleep. She covers him with a blanket, but she becomes flustered when she sees his lips, and she thinks about kissing him. Rosti suddenly asks her what she's doing, so she realizes he saw everything, and he starts to tease her. She admits that she's worried about William, since he always gets hurt, but he still doesn't stop pushing himself. She notes that she hates the Magia, since he's working hard to reach Elfaria's level, but she does nothing to help him, and just waits at the top of the tower. We see Elfaria with her assistant Sarissa, who notices there's something bothering her, but Eleanor wonders why she came out of her room, since she does nothing but waste time there. She thinks Eleanor is angry since she lost to her in a magic competition, but she explains that it's because they were restricted to ice magic, and claims she would have destroyed Elfaria if she went all out. A Magia named Zio suddenly interrupts them, but they tell him to leave and call him a barbarian. Elfaria wonders what he's doing there, so he explains that he needs to prepare for the Terminalia ritual, since the Great Barrier is about to disappear. The next day, the students prepare for the magic history exam, but they're worried since Edward will serve as their proctor, and they know that his tests are extremely difficult. Edward joins them in the room, and as he gives them their test papers, he notes that he only has one question for the exam. As the students read the question, they realize it's about the activation and prerequisites for magic, which they perform unconsciously, and they just need to put it into words to pass the exam. William's friends have no problem answering it, since they know how to use magic, but William falls into despair, since it's not something he can learn from a book. He thinks he's doomed since he can't use magic, but he refuses to give up on his dreams, so he still does his best to answer the question. He writes that magic is aspiration, and notes that it's a miracle he can't grasp, but he still believes he can get stronger if he continues to work hard. After that, Worker confronts Edward about the exam, but he explains that he just asked the students about the most important foundation for a mage, and reveals that 40% of them failed the test. Worker tells him that that isn't the issue, and notes that the question was directed at William, but Edward pushes him back, and explains that people who can't use magic have no place in the tower. He notes that a sword can never become a wand, and we see that William failed the exam, but Edward thinks he did him a favor, since he wants him to give up on his dream that will never come true. At night, Rosti tells William he has finished repairing his goggles, but William notes that Edward gave him a question he could never answer, and he starts to cry. So Rosti cheers him up, and notes that he'll always be there for him. William's friends look for him, but they can't find him anywhere, and Julius thinks he left since he couldn't ascend to the tower. He calls William a disgrace, so Wignall tells him to take it back, but Julius explains that magic is everything in this world, and notes that a sword doesn't belong in the academy. He wonders why Xion isn't happy that William failed, so he explains that he always wanted to defeat him, but it's all in the past now. Worker suddenly joins them, and Colette tells him they're looking for William, but he tells them to go while he takes care of it, and reminds them it's almost time for Terminalia. A high mage named Clary announces the start of the festival and introduces herself as the announcer. She reveals that she's single, which is why she's jealous when she sees happy families, and she explains that they're about to restore the Great Barrier protecting the sky. She notes that a long time ago, the people didn't know of the sky, and the world was locked in darkness. The celestial host destroyed the world and took countless lives, but the founder of the tower, Sadie's, worked with the Magia to seal the sky, forcing the host to retreat. Iris knows that the barrier is only effective for a year,